Team update. Time now, 11:44 Eastern. Weather is favorable. Just confirmed with CENTCOM that we are a go for mission launch. 12:15 Eastern. F-18's launch. First strike package. 13:45. Trigger-based F-18 first strike window starts. Target terrorist is at his known location, so should be on time. Also, strike drones launch. MQ-9s. 14:10. More F-18s launch. Second strike package. 14:15. Strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. 15:36. F-18 second strike starts. Also, sea-based Tomahawks launched. Now, according to the White House, the director of the Central Intelligence Agency, and the DNI, this information here is unclassified, and was unclassified when it was released in a signal chain 2 hours before the first bombs started falling on Houthi targets in Yemen. This is what we've been talking about the last couple days, and we now have the full, unedited, unredacted text chain from Jeffrey Goldberg over at The Atlantic. We've talked about this in recent days where we've had senior leaders in the U.S. administration say this isn't real, and then shift over to it wasn't classified. We had yesterday DNI Gabbard and the director of the CIA, Ratcliffe, say there was no classified information in this text chain. That's confirmed by President Trump later in the day, and the White House earlier in the day. And I have to say, this information up here on the screen before, the operational details, launch times of assets prior to a real-time mission over hostile territory is classified information. There's no two ways about it. If this was an operation when I was on active duty and I shared this, or a soldier in my command shared it, we'd very well be facing jail time. Now, I understand this is one of those videos where people are going to come at me and say this is partisan or biased or this isn't what I'm here for. But I'll tell you what, this is the type of thing. This is a national security story, and this information here put American lives at risk. There were pilots in those F-18s entering hostile airspace that has shot down something like 15 Reapers in the last few years. So it's not just sticks and stones that they're throwing at our aircraft. And before they entered that hostile airspace on the possibility of an open platform here, classified information was being released. Thank God nobody was killed. None of our aircraft were shot down. But this is incredibly serious. And it doesn't matter who's in office or what administration, left, right, or center. This is wrong. And we're going to dive into what we know today. So the full text chain was just released by Jeffrey Goldberg over at The Atlantic. And he published this article titled, "Here are the attack plans that Trump's advisors shared on Signal." Once again, in the description below, you will have a gift article, so you can read this in its entirety. I'll also put the original article. I know a lot of these are behind paywalls, but you guys are awesome. We're going to do gift articles here in the description because everybody should read this. In that article, he writes, quote, quoting some of these senior officials that we had in videos yesterday, Tulsi Gabbard at the Senate Intelligence Committee. There was no classified material that was shared in the Signal chat. President Trump yesterday afternoon talking about the same thing. It wasn't classified information. He said the statements made by Hegseth, Gabbard, Ratcliffe, and Trump, combined with the assertions made by numerous administration officials that we are lying about the content of the Signal texts, have led us to believe that people should see the text in order to reach their own conclusions. Good. So what we talked about in yesterday's video is look, somebody's clearly lying here, because the journalist said, yeah, that was classified information in there for sure. And then we had all of these senior leaders saying there was not. Well, it can't be both things at once. So let's release the text, and that's what happened. Turns out they sent a note to all of these. The reason it didn't happen right away yesterday is The Atlantic sent notes out to all these government agencies saying, quote, "In light of statements today from multiple administration officials, including before the Senate Intelligence Committee, that the information in the Signal chain about the Houthi strike is not classified and that it does not contain war plans, The Atlantic is considering publishing the entirety of the Signal chain." They said they didn't hear back from anybody except the White House. They did get a note back they did hear back from the White House where they said, "As we have repeatedly stated, there is no classified information transmitted in the group chat. However, as the CIA director and national security advisor have both expressed today, that does not mean that we encourage the release of the conversation. That was intended to be an internal and private deliberation among high-level senior staff, and sensitive information was discussed. So for those reasons, yes, we object to the release." Personally, it looks like they kind of forced his hand, if I'm being honest. Like, he said he had this information. Everybody said, you're lying about what you actually have. It seemed like the only logical step was for him to say, like, what would you do in that situation, right? They say what you have isn't classified, but you're a liar saying that, you have A, B, and C. Of course he's going to put that out. Now, I should caveat, there is one thing that's redacted here, and this one's even just based off of how this whole thing's playing out. They say a CIA spokesperson asked us to withhold the name of John Ratcliffe's chief of staff, which Ratcliffe shared in the signal chain because CIA intelligence officers are traditionally not publicly identified. Ratcliffe had testified earlier today that the officer is not undercover and said it was completely appropriate to share their name in the signal conversation. We will continue to withhold the name of the officer. Otherwise, in the entirety, the messages are unredacted. Again, all available in the description below. We're going to run through some of them here. The most important one to me, again, throughout a lot of this, you just get some internal squabbling, and honestly, I just don't care. It's like inside baseball, behind the scenes type stuff. There is the overall issue here is the classified information, what is being shared on Signal. Now, Signal itself has not been broken into, but it can't be used on government devices. So this has to have been used on private devices is kind of where this is coming from. And even if Signal is on a government device, it's not authorized to share classified information. So we've got spillage here, and it's not just spillage about the JFK files or something years and years ago. It's spillage before a real-time operation takes place where our sons and daughters are putting their lives at risk. That was the spillage. Let's get into it. This is from the Hegseth text. 1410, more F-18s launch, second strike package. 1415, strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop. 1536, F-18, second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched. More to follow per timeline. We are currently clean on OPSEC, operational security. Godspeed to our warriors. The way that classification works, and there's people that have much more experience with this than I do, is when something like a strike package is classified, let's say, in that package you would have the target location, you'd have who the target is, you would have the weapon systems that are going to be utilized, the timeline that you're going to carry out that strike, the platforms you're going to use to carry out that strike, and all sorts of other stuff like weather, chain of command, radio signals, electronic warfare package, et cetera, et cetera. Imagine that as like a packet. When that packet is classified as, let's say, top secret, you cannot take something out of it and say this piece now, because it doesn't have the rest of that information, is now unclassified. It doesn't work like that. Now, you could call that a flaw in our classification systems, but it's the reason that we end up with stuff that's overly classified, way past the expiration date. Why, like, the weather report in this would technically be classified, even though, like, you and I could look that up today. So clearly it's not, like, from a secure means of collection. But when you have it all in that package, it is classified information. And there's no doubt that with this detailed information, an adversary could piece something together. So they know that we're carrying out strikes in Yemen. They now know that F-18s are being utilized, right? So it kind of limits the location where F-18s can be launched from, carrier-based aircraft primarily. So they just have to identify, okay, where might that be? They know the exact times that they're going to launch. They also know the exact times that the bombs are supposed to fall. So they can pretty easily, if you had that information, you could pretty easily tell where those aircraft are going to fly, or at least one of the points they're going to fly over. So this isn't a matter of, well, there wasn't the name of the target, or there wasn't the radio frequencies, or there wasn't the call signs. This information in itself is classified, and it has to be pulled from a classified source to be published here into an unclassified medium. And again, this is the type of thing that if a soldier were to do this about a patrol or an operation in Afghanistan, Iraq back in the day, it could be punishable by sending the person to prison, just so you understand the severity of this. But it's not just the strike information here. Following that, at 2 p.m., National Security Advisor Waltz responded, quote, typing too fast, the first target, their top missile guy, we had positive identification of him walking into his girlfriend's building, and now it's collapsed. Again, that might not sound like a whole lot. That is a battle damage assessment. Battle damage assessments are also classified. And the reason for that, there's a lot of different reasons for that. In fact, we don't always want the enemy to know what we know. Do we know that we killed their guy? Do they know that we missed them? Right? That's sensitive information. Big picture here, we don't want them to know what assets we're using to identify that. So when in this chat, Waltz is saying, we're watching the target, we have eyes on the target, it immediately tells our adversary that there is some sort of real-time monitoring asset overhead at that time. Like the minute that bomb fell, there is some sort of ISR asset in that immediate area. it starts to give away, again, more locations of our assets. So BDA, classified until it can be unclassified. So across the board here, we have a lot. That's the big pieces for me. And it kind of brings me back to the Senate hearings yesterday when, again, Senator Kelly, and I think I'll go ahead and play that clip here because it was so timely with this. He knew what to ask. And he asked about timelines. He asked about weapons platforms. He asked about targets. He knew the questions to ask to kind of dig into the details of was classified information released, because he knows that information about an upcoming operation in every circumstance would be classified. There's just no two ways about it. So we'll go ahead and play this clip from Senator Kelly. I think it's worth watching again now that we've kind of seen all of the text. Let's run that real quick.
I'll start with Ms. Gabbard. In the signal chain that we have been talking about, was there any mention of a target in Yemen?
I don't remember mention of specific targets.
Any generic target?
I believe there was discussion around targets in general.
Was there any mention, Ms. Gabbard, of a weapon or weapons system?
I don't recall specific weapons systems being named.
I'm not talking about specific, any weapon or weapons system.
I don't recall specific names of systems or weapons being used or named within the
Well, I'm not asking whether, I don't want you to tell me what the specific weapon was, but any weapon at all. Mr. Ratcliffe, same question.
I don't recall.
How about anything about timing? Ms. Gabbard.
I don't recall specific timing.
Was there any mention?
I won't get into the detail of the conversation, but obviously there was a significant amount of planning and internal discussions that had occurred prior to and outside of this signal chat.
So I don't know. I mean, look, clearly some of the stuff the senator was asking about is right here on the screen that we can see. My hope now, there's a lot of other stuff going on that we need to focus on, and I want to focus on. We've got a ceasefire coming together in Ukraine, which is potentially really good news. Israel's back on the march in Gaza, which is looking like it's going to spiral out of control here any day. I want to get back to that. We're getting back to that now. My hope is now that all this information is out there, we can, there can be consequences. People will be held accountable. There'll be hearings, whatever it is. But like, problem solved. We now know the details of the text chain, what should and should not have been in there. Let's move past, right? Get on to the more important focus on the things. Clean this up for sure. Hopefully this is not a wider spread issue across any organization in our government, that the issue of leaking classified information like this on a possibly open platform. But good news. We got the information. The reporter released it. It's there. We now know. We can all judge for ourselves whether you want to defend the actions or think, like I do, that this was an inappropriate release of sensitive information before a military strike. And let's get back to the most important national security subjects here that are continuing to go on every single day. But that's all I've got for now. Again, full article linked in the description below if you want to check that out. But thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.